If not, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Comments from the floor? Go ahead.
Please state your name and address.
Mark Cherney, 320, Mark Cherney, C-H-E-R-N-E, 325 Station Lane. I'd like to ask the trustees for the reasons to invalidate the Planning Commission's 5-1 decision on rezoning that corner lot on 35 and Station Lane. Rezoning this parcel of land will lead to a disruption of neighborhood harmony, increased vandalism and crime, lowered property values for all surrounding homes, highly increased traffic. Rezoning will also lead to a loss of small town character. 86% of the village survey respondents said they want to retain that. Was your decision based solely on statements made by the developer, Mr. Dean Hanson and his representatives? In my opinion, some of these statements appear to be misinformation or just plain wrong. For instance, Mr. Hanson stated there would be approximately 1 or 2 deliveries per day for a proposed 30,000 square foot store. That number really surprised me, so I called 2 different grocery store managers in the town I grew up in. It's a town of 3,800. One of these stores is a 25,000 square foot store. The manager told me they receive between 50 and 75 deliveries a week, not 1 to 2 a day, and most of those are semis. The second store in the same town is between 12 and 14,000 square feet. They receive between 25 and 35 deliveries a week, again, mostly semis. Both of these stores are only open during the day from 7 to 7. The manager of the Econo Food store on top of the hill reports they receive between 45 and 50 deliveries a week. That store, I think, is 40 to 50,000 square feet. Or could it be because Mr. Hanson assured the trustees that Econo Foods and County Market had at most 36 cars in their lot? That was his count during a noon hour. My neighbor, who couldn't be here tonight, he's got a work commitment. He went up to Econo Foods specifically to count cars. At 10:30 on Saturday morning, there were 46 cars in the lot. At 5:30 p.m., there were 71 cars, double the number of cars that Mr. Hanson reported. Mr. Hanson also said that concrete building will absorb increased traffic noise. Most concrete walls I'm familiar with reflect noise. They certainly do not absorb it. And the promise of installing low-light parking lot lights, that would calm the fears of your neighbors. I've never seen a commercial parking lot that was not lit up like a high school football field on Friday night. Perhaps it was that when the trustees asked the Planning Commission Chair Miser for the reason the Planning Commission voted against rezoning the parcel, his response was, well, while they voted 5-1 against it, he had changed his mind. Then he proceeded to give his personal opinion, but not the Planning Commission's reasons. His duty was to report the reasons for the Planning Commission decision, but instead it was his personal opinion. 2 of my neighbors called trustee board members prior to last month's meeting to explain their wishes against rezoning. Both of them were specifically told by the members, don't bother attending the meeting. It doesn't have a chance of passing. These same trustees then voted to approve the rezoning. Was that the right thing to do? The rezoning was approved with no traffic studies, not by the Wisconsin DOT, nor by the village. Rezoning was approved without environmental impact statements, not the DNR, nor any other group. This parcel drains directly into a national scenic river, the St. Croix. One of the members of the trustees stated concerns for potential lost property values and hoped that would not happen. I conferred with 2 professional residential property appraisers. Both confirmed that the adjacent properties would indeed lose value due to the zoning change from C2 to C3. One said, imagine sitting on your deck, backs up against a 30-foot black wall, dumpsters, high traffic building across the street. Add to that increased vandalism, garbage, car and truck traffic, semis, other trucks delivering any time of day. You can easily understand the loss in property values. In the often quoted survey, 72% of the respondents, they were in favor of the market grocery store, but 86% are in favor of retaining small town flavor. 90% are in favor of preserving the environmental corridors. Fully 39% are against any further commercial development, and 57% are in favor of limited commercial development and preserving the natural environment. No one, not a board member, referenced these numbers when we were discussing the rezoning. And were the respondents in favor of a 30,000 square foot store 3 times the size of Mama Maria's? I certainly am not. Immediately before the vote, one of the trustees said he couldn't think of any example of a C3 other than a grocery store. Another trustee thought a C3 could be multi-family housing. A C3 can include a grocery store, bar, restaurant, coffee shop, tattoo parlor, clothing store, liquor store, fast food drive-thru, car wash, gas station, C-store, auto body shop, etc. How can you vote to approve something when you don't even understand the impact of that decision? Another trustee stated he wanted this to be a win-win situation. With all these detrimental issues, this certainly is not a win-win unless you're talking about the developer and his tenants. Certainly it's not a win for the neighbors, their lost enjoyment, value of their homes. I strongly encourage the Board of Trustees to reconsider your actions and reverse them before more damage is done to the village, to your friends and neighbors, and the future of North Hudson. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. I need to, those are all very good points, by the way. I just need to make sure we all understand procedurally what the board is limited to tonight. The topic of rezoning or to reconsider rezoning was not on the agenda. Nobody asked it to be on the agenda, okay? So therefore, the board can't engage in a discussion and try to respond to your questions, okay? The comments section within the agenda, we put it there so that if residents want to bring up any subject, they have the opportunity to do so. It's limited to topics which are not on the agenda, okay? This issue in particular, since it's already been through 3 public hearings, would require another public hearing, I'm assuming, if you want to do that, okay? So in terms of the board trying to respond to you tonight, we literally can't. It's not that we don't want to, and it's not that your points aren't well taken, but we've just got limits as to what we can do and not do here at a board meeting, okay? So if others want to stand up and make comments, you can do so. We cannot take up that issue tonight as a board. You just need to understand that procedure. I couldn't do that if I wanted to, okay? Okay.
Well, and I think the gist of what the comment is, if it's not a repetitive, everybody saying the same thing, and the other problem with the comment section, it wasn't put out for the rest of everybody else that didn't know that this was going to take place to be able to come and respond, because of course it's not a public hearing. So how far it goes in, I hesitate to get ourselves in trouble for having a meeting, an illegal meeting based on.
I mean, as residents, you are certainly free to talk about going from a C2 to C3, or you can talk about stop signs or whatever else you want to talk about. You can make your comments, go on record, but that's all we can do tonight, okay? Now, Mark, you did a very nice job. I think you covered a lot of good points. Okay. Now, would anyone want to add something to that? If not, I mean, then the board just has to get on with the agenda that was published.
I just want to make a quick comment.
Sure.
My name is Kevin Matif. I'm in 273 Station. Thanks here.
Sorry, what was your name again?
Kevin Matif, M-A-T-V. It's a strange name. Yeah, I know. Couple days ago, I stopped and asked how to build a fence about my property, or part of my property. And turns that I have to go to 4 hearings, including public safety, to build a small fence around part of my property. I was surprised that here you made so crucial decision without proper information. I would say you basically bought what the developer sold you without getting some comments from duty, DNR, and do demographics. I would tell you that because I got involved in a couple projects similar in the metro area, I would tell you that even if grocery store open here, it won't survive. It will close very quick. I bet on that. First, it won't be, the space is not enough big for big grocery store. Second, if we run demographics, big grocery store cannot be supported of the population here. And it will turn an empty building with a couple offices occupied from small businesses, which actually will be, in the best possible scenario, some pub or restaurant like Idaho Chuck's, and half of the building, I believe, will be empty. Or at least the second half of the building, because it will be kind of huge building. Okay, you got my name? I can give
Oh,
my
yeah.
business card if you.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, thank you for your attention.
Good, thank you.
Would you respond to the fence issue 4?
You know, after I heard it, I think he talked about.
Jackie Dunker, 345 Station Lane. I just wanted to put this out, food for thought. There's a term called due diligence, and I guess I am still just totally befuddled by comments that are made on a person that stands to gain everything that aren't questioned or investigated, and that kind of large decision gets passed based on whatever the person chooses to say. And to me, it just doesn't make any sense that I could come up here and make many statements, but if there's even an inkling of maybe we should have an objective viewpoint on this, or someone that's impartial, I don't understand how that can be given such weight to make that kind of major decision for rezoning from someone that offered absolutely nothing to substantiate it. And my disappointment's as deep as it goes. I just wanted you all to know that.
Thank you.
I'm Kevin Whiteley. I live at 317 Station Lane. I don't back up to the property. It's not that it's not that it's going to infringe on where I live. However, I didn't want it there. I did not believe that it should be moved from a C2 to C3. C3 means anything. We could have a strip club in there in a year.
No, you can't.
I called people on this board. You can shake your head no,
You
but we
can't.
could have, it's my turn. I called people on this board before I left, and I said, please do not vote for this. And I was told, don't worry, we listened to our zoning commission. The zoning commission voted twice, 5-1, against this. You guys then turned around and on the word of Dean Hansen, voted this in. I think it was an incredible mistake. I think you have a duty to your homeowners, to the taxpayers, whose property taxes are going to be devalued, and I think you failed in that duty. I am very disappointed. You know, you listened to a man that showed nothing, and I think you were sold a bill of goods.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Going once, going twice? Okay. Thank you. And unfortunately, that's really all I can say tonight, okay? Moving on to the next item on the agenda, residential reclassification of vacant land approval or denial. Did you all take a look at that material that's in your 3-ring binder? There's an individual in the state who has taken one particular court case dealing with how properties are classified and has kind of started a little scam exercise for all intents and purposes. And so he has sent out summary letters to various municipalities requesting that certain vacant pieces of land be reclassified. Our attorneys have assured us that it is not a legitimate claim, nor is it appropriate. And I believe that there was a specific recommendation.
Yeah, the attorney asked that, if you read the letter from Baki Norman, that the village board, should be advised to, that,
Oh, okay.
yeah, the second sentence, I have been advised village.
So I think the
He's requesting that we deny that request to reclassify.
Okay.
Is that the third paragraph?
Yeah, and I was just trying to think for a second, what is the appropriate board response to the letter?
We're denying the claim, denial of claims notice to bring action. Alleging.
Looking for a suggested motion here.
Schumacher. I was just looking for Schumacher's
We
letter.
do not have a suggested motion. Well, that's what I was showing him. It kind of gives you a little bit of background or info about.
So, okay. Then just in the interest of time, I'd make a motion that the board deny the claim submitted by Kevin Irwin, Wisconsin Tax Solutions.
He's not just asking for reclassification, he's gonna turn around and ask then that he receive, tax money back for overpayment, because he wants to lower the classification.
Okay. I have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Could you reread that motion, please?
The motion was that the board deny the claim submitted by Kevin Irwin, Wisconsin Tax Solutions.
Is that word claim or claims? Because there, I
Had
interpret this
claim,
that there
but
are
it should be claims with
maybe
an S.
claims, because in reading Kevin Irwin's letter, it looks like there are multiple claims in there.
Do we have a date for that too? Is it just January 2007?
That's when he kind of sends out, that's when he did his distribution. Apparently, we're like many other municipalities,
In
received the
regards
same
to,
bogus request.
I'd recommend that before you change it, because it's gotta come from them, that you add in regards
The
to
January
the
2007 letter.
reclassification of.
Yeah, because the way the motion is currently made, it would prohibit our action for any future claims from Kevin Irwin, even if there was one that's legitimate. So
Okay.
I think it needs to be that the motion needs to include a comment to the January 2007 letter.
Or request, yeah.
Okay. Sean,
By the way, this
I'll give you a
letter
minute
was
to
not
catch up.
signed. This letter has no signature on it.
So would it be that the motion is that the board deny the claim submitted by Kevin Irwin, Wisconsin Tax Claims submitted by Kevin Irwin, Wisconsin Tax Solutions in regards to the reclassification in the January 2007 letter?
in his January 2000.
In his January, yeah.
That make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second it. Looks like Gloria wants to
Yeah.
discuss it.
I just want to ask maybe that I don't know whether it's motion or just say that authorizing our attorney to respond to this claim and that's why he gave you the draft letter, is so that he would,
Okay.
and I just want to know that I
Is
can tell
every
him.
municipality going to have to do exactly the same thing that we're doing tonight?
Yep.
Very likely.
That's why this letter, I didn't have to
Yeah.
hardly say anything. He had it drafted, just change the names of the municipalities.
So should I just add to the end of it and authorize the village attorney to respond
Appropriately.
appropriately?
I would venture a guess that what Baki Norman will do then is to have one letter going to Mr. Irwin with a list of all the municipalities on there. And perhaps our motion could be used as a template for other municipalities as well.
Okay. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. The amended Class B liquor license for extended premises, Malibu Inn, Spring Inn, Spring Motorcycle Run.
I'll second.
Will that be with the extended hour to 2 o'clock as opposed to what it has been in the past? At 1
Yes.
Well, actually, it's just shifting the time 1 hour,
o'clock?
shall
Right,
we say,
1
to the
hour.
right.
Makes sense.
The chief said that there are still people there after 1 o'clock
Yeah.
in the past, and he recommends that,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. We deal with this one every year? Okay, all in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Vendor license application. Did you want to give us any background on that? Setting aside the name.
I think you've seen as much as I have actually on it. Donna processes. Evidently, he wants to be able to set up kind of like a barbecue stand at different social events within the village, which I'm not quite sure where that's going to be because I don't know. I mean, it would be on a case by case that he would have to go to the Mallow Inn and ask, or to wherever, and say, can I set up on your parking lot and sell barbecue items? So I'm not quite sure what events it would be, but basically it's in order for him to, or the two of them to do business.
Do vendor license applications normally come straight to the board?
They went to Chief Richards, and he said because it's a new business, he does not have any history. There's no better business reports. There's not a lot to be able to investigate with it. But he did approve it, or it was his recommendation.
Do you know the owners of the business?
No.
Okay.
What concerns me, and what
Oh, there
concerned
he
me
is.
even before I got your issue statement here, Mark, is that looking at this guy could operate, I mean, he could open up something in front of Village Hall here and start selling barbecue ribs out of it. I'm a little,
However, the memo talks about
I,
the conditions.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, basically, as far as the investigation part of the law enforcement or the police department in the ordinance, it basically just, we have to show that there's a good reputation for the business, or a lack of a negative reputation. And so because this business, and I talked to Mike Fitzgerald this afternoon, it's brand new. This is Mike Fitzgerald, the gentleman that applied. The business is brand new. It's not something, I believe he owns a restaurant or has some sort of restaurant business, and this is gonna be an offshoot to do some off-site activities. And I know that he had looked at trying to get cooperation from the Malibu Inn to put up a stand to do sales during the upcoming motorcycle run, both the spring and the fall. And then I think he was looking at keeping it open-ended so that if there were other events, I don't know if Pepperfest was on his mind, but other events where he could set up. You'll notice on my memo that there is restrictions. He has to have permission from the property owner. And I know that at this point, Malibu Inn, he hasn't obtained permission from them. He is negotiating with them at this point. So he may not have a venue with which to do this. But as far as my part of it goes, and you'll notice in my memo, it just related to his reputation and the investigation on that. Gloria and I were also talking about, I don't know what kind of restrictions the state of Wisconsin would put on him based on the fact that it is a food product, and whether I'm sure there's quite a few that he would have to abide by.
The only place you could do it is on a commercial site, and if the owner can't agree to do it without amending their own conditional use permit, so it's really you're agreeing to let him do it, but he's gonna have to go get a amended conditional use permit before, say he wants to do it at the Malibu Inn, they're gonna have to come up to amend their conditional use permit to say, now we wanna have this smoker out there. So even if the owner wanted to, he can't do it without amending his conditional use permit. So you're agreeing to let him do it, but he's really got to come through here. Somebody's got to come through here again when he actually does it somewhere. You know, because they just can't let it put up a stand without amending their conditional use permit. So it's really not that risky of a proposition.
In the past, when we've approved these, they're called peddler, canvasser transient merchant. It was for a specific time and a specific place. We approved one so somebody could canvass the area. That was a one-shot deal. We approve it each year, I think, for a vendor for Pepperfest Parade. Okay, we know that vendor's coming in. We know exactly what that vendor's going to be doing. I'm a little concerned about this one and where exactly and when it's going to be in operation.
I'll move to deny it because in reality, he's got it. Whoever's going to do it, wherever he's going to do it, has to have a conditional use permit. So, given the open-endedness of it, not knowing quite what it is, denying it really doesn't change any circumstances for him. But it does relieve us of any responsibility or liability incurred. So I'm going to move to deny it, and because if they want to do it, he still can do it. He's just going to have to get an amended conditional use permit for the premises that's where it's going to be. So the simplest way to do it is just deny it.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Further
Mark,
discussion?
one question I've got of you, since he's not here. Does he do all of his food preparation and cooking at the site? I'm looking at his home address on Margaret Street, or is this something that he has to prep for the night before?
Not something I discussed with him that I would even be able to answer for him. I just had to find out his background and not anything about the business specifically. So that's why I'm saying my end of it's really limited.
Gotcha.
I wish I knew more to be able to tell you, but.
What I envisioned when I read this was that, oh, this would be like the one that's across from Fleet Farm. The fellow shows up and cooking ribs right there.
Well,
what hit me when I saw that the first time was, it doesn't look legal.
Actually, there's something like this, you know, when he came down, he should have just been instructed that the vendor's permit doesn't apply.
Thank you. That's exactly what
And said you should have just get a conditional use permit, and it was so it's really pointless to even discuss this.
That's good points. Okay. All in favor of the motion to deny the request, signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Plan Commission?
Commission is empty.
Good evening. I even remembered your different night this month.
Very good of you. Thank you, Mike.
Hey, Mike.
We only had one order of business last month, and that was to start discussion on the building design standards as we discussed in our comprehensive plan, and as we brought up last month here. Before we start on that, just to let you know, there were several members of the public in attendance. They had some good suggestions, some comments about the design standards. That was good to see. We started off reviewing just a simple one, Don, I found. It's the design standards for commercial district of Bennington, Vermont. Now, we're not Vermont, but the size of the community kind of fit in, and it got us a little bit up to speed, since none of us are building designers, on just what kind of things we're looking for. And taking account of some of the comments made by the board last time, you know, we're not looking at making things overly restrictive, but we discussed, you know, is it a standard, is it a statute, what all those things are. Mm-hmm. The sense of the commission was, you know, we'll have standards with flexibility, so we can say, here's our palette of choices of what we like, or what we seem to think fits into our community. So our homework assignment for the commission members was to go through some of the other plans we saw, Stillwater and some other ones that were on the internet, and pick the qualities we liked and the qualities we didn't like, what we didn't think would fit into this community. And we'll bring them to the next meeting, we'll bring pictures, and we'll start laying it out.
Good.
And that was the business.
Good. Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Before you go, I hope you stay for the presentation on the pictures behind me.
We discussed that too. They said, gee, if we had standards, would it meet?
That's why I don't want you to leave yet.
Good. Thanks, Mike. Okay, moving on to Finance Committee claims. The Finance Committee is recommending approval of the claims. I'll go back to it.
Yeah, where is that? I think I need that motion. You need that motion again?
So the chair would entertain a motion to pay our bills.
Yeah, I move that we approve March non-reoccurring claims totaling $16,296.85.
Second.
Right. Questions on the, any of the claims? Okay. If not, we'll do roll call votes. Jim?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Sandra?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Larry, yes. 6-0, unanimous. Public officials' bond options. The purpose of this is we have a bond, obviously, on all of the employees, or a number of the employees. Gloria is recommending and has done the background to get what's known as a blanket bond rather than a name bond, so that if Jennifer were to leave, we're bonding that position, not Jennifer per se. And the committee looked at the proposal submitted by Horton, which is an insurance company or an insurance brokerage firm. And they're recommending that we use most likely the Ohio Casualty, I believe, is the supplier. And there's a rather, there's at least some degree of cost savings by going to a 3-year agreement instead of doing a 1. So, can you read exactly what the motion was?
Yeah, the motion was that the board recommends approval of the 3-year blanket bond from Ohio Casualty, providing $50,000 coverage with a $500 deductible to include the faithful performance provision and the depositor's forgery coverage not to exceed $1,000 for a 3-year coverage.
Okay.
Second. Larry, perhaps you should just make a brief mention of why you used the example of Jennifer leaving.
Because we'll be dealing with her later. Jennifer will be leaving shortly for temporary, for maternity leave. So, I mean, having a bond for employees in the private sector is not uncommon. Having them for municipal employees is quite common. I think Gloria did a good job in terms of catching the notion of rather than having named people, and use positions rather than names. So.
A quick question.
Plus, it also
sorry.
this happens to also be providing more coverage than the previous contract did.
I believe when Kathy reread the minutes, you referred to Ohio. Was it Ohio or Horton?
Horton is the name of, like, the insurance broker, insurance agency, if you want to call it that.
Ohio.
It should be
Ohio Casualty Insurance Company.
They could, I mean, if they elected to, if between now and then, they said we can find it cheaper with Travelers. But we don't care if it's Travelers or Ohio. Horton.
What, did the motion, was it with Horton or was it?
It was with Ohio, it read that the board recommends approval of the 3-year blanket bond from Ohio Casualty, providing $50,000 coverage
That is accurate,
Yeah.
with a $500 deductible.
because Horton supplies a variety of different agencies, and that's the one that was
Was
That they
chosen,
sent.
right?
Should we change that?
But this
to-
is picking up what Jim just,
Right.
Is that all right? Okay.
Okay, what?
but as Jim pointed out, if Horton were to come back to us, let's say, talk to you next week or tomorrow, you're locked into saying, no, I'm sorry, the board approved Ohio Casualty Insurance Company.
I would have to come back to the board to change it anyway. I can't make those
Okay,
decisions. I have to bring all the bonding to the board
All
anyway.
right.
So
Okay.
if it gets changed, it would have to go back through you anyway.
Okay.
Would it be advantageous to say any, well, anybody who Horton would recommend so that we're not locked into having to change this again? Or not?
Are you saying even when it comes back?
I would say that I would have to have the board's approval
Okay.
to lock the
That's
village
fine.
into the funds.
Okay.
And you would be approving who that they're going
Okay,
to.
so we're going to be dealing with this issue most likely next month.
only if Horton decides to pick a different casualty company.
No, you're right.
Okay.
Let's leave it the way it is.
That's exactly, yeah.
Okay. Any other comments? All right, that's a spending decision. We have to do another roll call. Sandra? Mark?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Joe?
Yep.
Larry, yes. Temporary staffing. As I mentioned before, Jennifer will be leaving in April,
Yeah,
approximately
it should be
April.
the end of April.
For on maternity leave. So we need to put somebody in there for replacement. So the Finance Committee is recommending, you're gonna read what the motion
yeah.
was?
Finance Committee recommends that the board authorize the village president and village administrator to retain the services of a temporary individual in the capacity of deputy treasurer at a billing rate not to exceed $24 per hour.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Questions?
Do you want to mention that that is the billing rate to the temp agency, not the salary
Not
that's
to the
paid to the
individual?
individual?
I think you just did. Okay. It's a spending decision, so we'll do a roll call. Jim?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Sandra? Mark?
Mm-hmm.
George? Okay. Okay, Public Works?
We had two things that we talked about at our last meeting. One was the St. Croix Station Summers Landing Road repair, and then the other one is the street sweeping contract. Because of the early, this meeting is about a week earlier, and we didn't have a chance really to get it into the packet of information or get it out into the paper beforehand about repairing of that road, so we're gonna take it up next time. We're looking for some additional information anyway, so that will come up at our next board meeting. The street sweeping contract, we talked about during the Finance Committee meeting, is up for renewal, and essentially we want to move approval of the street sweeping contract at a rate of $87 per hour with Mike McPhillips Incorporated. That is up from, it's either $83 or $84 an hour is what we've been paying. And because the board should know that because of the amount of salt that we're now putting on the street, instead of a sand-salt mixture, we've got a lot less salt to sweep up. So the amount of money that we will be paying Mike McPhillips will be down drastically from previous year, as well as transportation and taking that salt out of the area.
Okay.
So I think the motion stands.
Okay. So Joey made the motion. Is there a second to the motion to accept the street sweeping contract rate?
I'd second that.
Okay. Any other comments or questions on that?
Just so we know, McPhillips is aware of the fact it's probably only going to take 2 days rather than a week, and he's transporting equipment and things. It's going to be a wonderful, wonderful situation, like Joe said. A lot less sand.
Certainly will be.
Wonderful.
All right, again, it's the spending in a contract, so we'll do a roll call. All in favor signify by saying yes. Jim?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Sandra? Mark?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Okay. All right, public safety?
You know, there was another item that I was gonna mention, and it's just verbally. And I don't know if we put this on the agenda for some later date, but I just wanted to talk about it, and it has to do with the maintenance building. You know, we removed that, we now have essentially a gravelled area out there, dirt covered, and the board, as we're talking about this addition or whatever, we really should be deciding what we're gonna be doing about that property in the next month or so. Now would be the time to be planting grass or regrading it or whatever. I just bring it up to the board for,
You bring it up as new business, okay. That's about all the discussion we can have on it, since it's not
Yeah.
on the agenda.
Yeah, bring it up, but next time it should be on an item that we can act on.
we'll put it on the
Yeah.
agenda.
I mean, if we need to act on it, yes.
Yeah.
But we're certainly not going to get into the discussion on it tonight. Okay. Public safety?
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Let him turn his phone off there. Oh, geez, I thought, just remembered, I got mine on too. Public safety. As you can see from your agenda, there are there are 3 items on there. The Village Hall addition remodeling plan, I'll talk about that first, and then we'll have the ordinance discussion, and then something about a union contract, and we'll bring that up in that order. I'd like to begin with an introduction. I'm going to be talking about the pictures that you see behind me. The Building Management Committee, and we have some of the members are here. I'm the chair of that committee. Gloria is on the committee, and I guess I'll get to Elliot. Is there? Oh, there's the chief. I'm sorry, I'm looking out in the audience. Our chief and supervisor of Public Works is Mark Ekblad. He's not here. Gene Shefflin is not here, and Wally Gregerson is not here. But as you can see by the note or by the issue statement that I have in front of the board members, what I've tried to do here is give you a background synopsis, and I will read it into the record so that the public is aware of this. The Building Management Committee was formed at the January 2006 Village Board of Trustees meeting. BMC's organizational meeting was Monday, January 15th, and we've met every Thursday since. Elliot Architect, and so I'd like to take the moment to introduce our architect. Elliot, would you be recognized? Thank you. Elliot will be assisting me in the presentation of the drawings that you see behind me. With Elliot, this Building Management Committee has gone through, this is behind me, the 9th iteration of the floor plan. It seems that virtually every week that we met, we were tweaking this, tweaking that, and in fact, we went really drastic. We went from the public safety, or the police department being in the front to the police department being in the back. We even had a drawing of a 2-story building. We considered whether to have a full basement, partial basement, or no basement. So I'll be talking about that briefly. And the 4th bullet, which is probably the single most important bullet there, is that we are still well within the budget. And so I'd like to just take a moment or two, just point out some of the things that, when I was told to use this microphone here. Come on. I'm waiting for the little red light to come on. All right. You gotta hold the button. I was. It's a little tiny button here. It's like setting the hour on my car radio.
See it okay?
Well, when it lights up, I can see it. Yeah, here you go. Use this thing. Okay. I'd like to start with the floor plan. Now, what you see in gray here is the existing building. What you see over here is the police department, and what you see down here is the rest of the administrative offices. I'd like to talk about the meeting room here and how this is going to change. What Elliot came up with was a fantastic idea as far as we're concerned. And that was to add this lobby piece in the front of the building. And what that means is these windows will be replaced. They'll be knocked out. And there'll be an 8-foot, 8-foot, Elliot? Correct. 8-foot lobby extending on the other side of that. That's how well it's working. All right.
Want to use this?
All right, if you want me to. We like the idea of the lobby for a number of reasons. When you come into the building through the vestibule and into this becomes then a nice entrance area. We had a concern about voting. And Gloria's big concern was the accessibility during voting, during elections. What we have now is very cumbersome, coming in through these doors here and then funneling through and trying to get back out, it was very cumbersome. What we have here for voting, you'd be able to come in, cycle through the room, and then ride out, make it nice and smooth. That's not the only reason we have that there. It just seems to fit very nicely where we'd be able to have everybody just turn 90 degrees, and so you'd be facing this area, which brings me into this wall right here. Much of this wall is going to be knocked out. In fact, there's going to be an I-beam. Elliot, how long is that I-beam going to be?
21 feet, 4 inches.
And that I-beam will go from here to here. So as we look at it, it'll go from right about where I'm standing here over to about where that, that door frame, that second door frame, Elliot? About there. That will leave us a nice open area and a place where the board will be able to be seated up here. All right. For the folks in TV land, we've got this room here for the cable people, and then back here a small ante-room for the board. This addition was built or was designed with many things in mind, not the least of which happened to be our customers. In fact, we were very customer focused as we went through designing the floor plan. So when someone comes in through the vestibule, and this, by the way, is going to be, you notice over here we've got double glass. So somebody will be able to come in here. We've got glass over here as well. This will all be open, nice and bright. As they come into the vestibule, the first thing they'll be greeted by is this window and the clerk. So the clerk will be able to take care of most needs right here, but perhaps you need to have the assistance of the treasurer. You make the right turn, go right down this hallway, and here's a treasurer and a window to deal with the treasurer. One of the iterations had the two windows side by side here. And we thought about that, and Gloria pointed out, you know, somebody who's dealing with the treasurer may not necessarily, and somebody's dealing with the clerk, the windows would be too close together. Let's move them so that they're actually the first thing that you see right here as you come to the clerk. And the clerk may say to you, I'm sorry, but you need to see the treasurer. Where's the treasurer? Just right around the corner. So it's nice and convenient. All right, while we're in this hallway, we go down the hallway a little bit further, and here's the police administrator. Nice and convenient if you need to talk to the police administrator, or maybe you need to see somebody from the court of the clerk. You just continue a little bit further. And so we're taking care of most of our customers will be able to be serviced right down this hallway. Should make it, we think this is going to make it nice and clean for our customers. Let's take a look at the police department. The police department is the blue area, as I said before, and as we look at this, we see that many of the things that are on here now are actually on here by law. I'm going to ask the chief if he'd come in and talk a little bit about why we have this interview room and what we're currently using to conduct interviews with some of the people who need to be interviewed. So, Mark, could you? We're not talking about interview for a police job either.
As much as I enjoy every time you call me up here. This interview room, by state law, as of January 1st, any interviews that are done with suspects in a felony case or with juveniles related to them being a suspect in a case, it must be recorded either audio or visual, or audio or visual. This room will be equipped with both so that we'll be able to get facial features and whatnot for some of those felony cases, that it's really important to have those. All that structure is based on being able to show that there's no coercion, that the tactics used by law enforcement during their interviews isn't, I guess, of a negative manner. So that's why that room is in place there. And you also notice, I guess, just to preempt George a little bit, that there's only two extra rooms in this space that we don't have downstairs. These two offices are currently combined downstairs. My office and the patrol office. We've added the interview record room, which basically this will have all the equipment for the interview room, and then a sergeant's office, just because he is a supervisor for our department and does do disciplinary action, that some of his records should be kept confidential. And so it just kind of adds to some of the security for our department. Anything else you'd like me to point out?
How about that staff toilet? No, it's just because it's there and it looks like, oh, wait a minute, don't we already have, that's where the men's room is.
It is currently where the men's room is, and I think as far as functionality, and Elliot can talk about this, that we didn't really have to change the function of this room. There's not a whole lot of destruction or revamping. I think there'll be some cleaning of the room and some revamping of that part of it.
We're
But
gonna put heat in it this time.
right, and it's closed off, so it doesn't have an exterior wall anymore. But basically, that was for the staff, so that in some of the areas where there are public toilets, without blushing quite a bit, when you take off your duty belt and lay it on the floor in a restroom, it's not exactly a comfortable feeling and not the most secure for weapons and such. And so a lot of the officers, this is one of the requests that they made when we were looking at ideas for the new building.
Thank you, Mark. All right, we'll come back down into this area again. You'll notice that we have a copy work room here. And yeah, this actually is a wide open corridor. There'll be a large window. Elliot, how far down is that window? Is it just going to be a standard size window, or are we going to, or how do we?
4 feet by 4 feet.
Okay.
3 feet off.
We want to get some light through here. We're doing whatever we can to maximize the amount of light that gets into the building. And so you'll notice that I don't know if we've increased, but we've made sure that there's quite a bit of windows around here to get natural light in. In fact, at the end of this corridor, not only is this a glass door, but next to it there's also glass, so we can get natural light coming in through here. So what we've got here is a copy work area. We've got a break room here, Public Works. Now, it says mail. What we're going to do currently, I don't know if you're aware of this, but all of us get, even all the board members, we all have mailboxes. And to get to the mailbox, you have to go into Gloria's office. That's not right. So we're bringing them outside. We couldn't do that before. Just as a side note, remember that this facility that you're in right now was built before there was any need for a police. Do we have a police department back when this was built? We didn't have the administrative staff. We forced all these functions into this building. So now what we have is a building where we can perform the functions in a business-like manner. Notice the administrator's office is down here. There's a double window here, so the administrator is in constant contact with, or can be in touch with, the treasurer and the clerk just looking through the window. All right, so as we looked at this, what you don't see on here is the partial basement. Elliot, help me out. I think that partial basement is right about here.
Next board, George. Just lift that board.
George, can I refer to something before you change the
one you're on.
Oh, I see it. I see it hiding back here. Okay. Go ahead.
I see that in the lobby you have a wall of windows on both sides of the lobby. There aren't any windows in the meeting room or back in the board's sitting space.
You mean back here?
Back there.
There's probably one, there's one there
Yeah.
now, but I don't know if you'll block it.
We're going to leave these windows, or are we bricking them in? That's a good question. We hadn't really talked about that.
I think the concern we have is where do we put the screen you have to have for presentations. So what our intent, it's a little hard to explain right now because this is all going to be gone. So this room will expand almost into a 40 by 40 module.
But the question is, what about the windows that are currently there?
They would be removed, be covered.
Be covered.
And I assume the heating and ventilation, the air conditioning will be upgraded to an extent where it won't be a concern that there will be windows back there.
No.
There won't be
Yeah,
stuff.
and we're going to use the existing heating in this building, cooling. The new building will have its own, the new addition will have its own heating plant.
Which we can see behind this. Let me move this over here and we'll take a look at the half basement. This is our existing basement. If you go downstairs, you'll find that this would be the chief's office, the patrol office. This is the regular police department office where the clerk and the clerk of court reside. And so you can see this is being changed to what appears on here right now, the word storage. We'll come over here, and this is the new piece of the basement. So you can see it's a very small basement, and it's being used mostly as for the mechanical mechanical room. And you'll notice here we have the lift. And come over to here, and you can see here it is on the first floor. We can call it a lift here. We don't call it an elevator. Elliot, would you describe the difference between a lift and an elevator? I think it has to do with the enclosure. They can't hear your quiet voice without that.
Our number one concern when we looked at this, everybody talks about elevators and they're concerned about the cost of an elevator. In the state of Wisconsin, you're allowed to use a two-person lift. You've seen them where they've done accessibility changes in a church, for example. So we've used them a number of times. And the reason we're deciding to do it with the village hall is, surprisingly, this is a very small project, size-wise. The existing building is 2,000 square feet, which is about the size of a, well, nowadays, smaller house. And the addition is about 3,600 square feet. So with that size of facility, our concern was, would we be able to get away without having vertical circulation other than stairs? So a call to the state and you find out that all public buildings need to have accessibility to all parts. So all of a sudden then we had to consider the elevator to the lower level. There was a time that we made this all basement in the planning. My problem with that is, were you going to put people down here? And they kept saying, no, no, no. And I said, well, what are you going to store down there? That's going to be over, you know, in total 5,000 square feet of storage. Well, the whole village office wasn't going to be that large. So we opted to minimize the lower level because the reason, part of the reason we're doing this project is to get the police out of the basement. That's one of the concerns. So this will be basically a non-public, other than staff space. So that's the reason for the lift going down. It's a two-person lift, so it can do an elevator, or excuse me, a wheelchair and a person. But typically it'll probably for the village be used to transport boxes and files up and down. So that instead of having all of these overflow files that you see, and Mark's office back in that corner, we will now have a place, so this will actually look like a council chamber.
Elliot, tell them the difference in price between a lift and an elevator.
Well, George and Jean on the committee like to pin me down and then they write these numbers down. And so the next time we have a meeting, they're always considering what you said at the last meeting. Our experience has been that the lift will range from 24 to 28,000. An elevator, we just built our new office on Cooley Road. That elevator is about $50,000. That's completely independent. It needs no, you know, but we needed to do that for the clientele that we were having. I think here it's makes more sense for the village to have the accessibility and not spend the money.
Thank you, Elliot. Stay up here. We may have another question or two for you. One of the things, this is where it says existing mechanical room. This is where the current heating system is. We came to the realization that we are currently in violation because we are using this as a storage area down there. We've got a lot of paper down there, and right next to it's the furnace. Oh, wait a minute, something doesn't look right here. So what we decided to do is, well, let's put a wall in here. And now what we've done is we've isolated the furnace room, and we can still retain this as storage area, and now we're in compliance. Just while we're looking at the basement here, in anticipation of people saying, wait a minute, are you going to use that as storage area? I thought you said we have a mold problem down there. And the answer is, well, yes, we do. And so what we will be doing is we'll be taking down the ceiling, the hung ceiling that's there. We'll be taking up all the carpeting. We'll be taking everything out of here that we possibly can. We'll be keeping the walls. We'll be keeping all of these walls so we can keep the doors. This will remain, every one of these doors is a secure door. In fact, this existing storage room right here is an evidence room. So that's why it has, if you go down there, you'd find it has a steel door on it and a very secure lock. So with all of the carpet out, with all the ceiling removed, we'll be able to increase the air circulation down there and hopefully dry that out and take care of our mold problem. You got anything else to add about the basement?
I think only that I try to minimize the basement, because as we build in today's world, we try to keep people above ground. Years ago, basements were put in because the argument was it won't cost that much more to go down and make a basement under a building. But now with the environmental concerns that we have, we'd prefer not to have those moist spaces that are probably a little more difficult to control.
And just to add to that, if we were to have a full basement, we'd also have to provide air circulation down there, so we'd have to heat it and cool it. And we started to realize what the long-term effect would be and the cost, not just building it, but being able to maintain it.
Well, is there substantial savings then over that?
Yes, there is. And we actually had those calculations, didn't we? I don't remember.
Looks like you got more money probably for a lobby with that area, but less for the basement and the elevator.
I think what we try to do in the plan is make it more public friendly. In other words, presently when you come in, I've been in this area for over 34 years, so I'm familiar with what the village hall is all about. And the changes you've made up here, I think, you really merit a building like this. And we try to be as efficient as possible, and the slab on grade is probably the least expensive structure-wise for this large area.
Okay.
The other concern we had, Joe, is the lot line at the rear is only 5 feet. So we really, you know, we'd have to move a fair amount of that down to.
So it's slab on grade?
Our intention is that everything but that small piece would be a slab on grade.
Oh, okay. That's got to be a lot cheaper.
One of those concerns that keep coming back at me are George and Jean saying, is this still in the budget? And so I want to make sure that each time we make a plan change that we're conforming to that budget.
When we first started talking about this, we talked about adding a 3,000 square foot addition. And so we tried to stay as close as we could to the 3,000 square foot addition. And what you see in color here, this piece right here is 3,162 feet, I think it was. It was so close. The additional, and you heard Elliot just use a number 36, I think it was.
3640.
And what that does is it does include this lobby then. So we felt though that if we could stay within budget and we could do this lobby, that would be a good way to go.
Well, not only that, maybe you'll do a better job of just architectural with the appearance of the front of the building too.
Exactly. Well, there's another piece to it beside that, and it has to do with the temperature of these walls, these exterior walls. When we started this project, it was in January, and all it took was anybody could go up and feel this wall. This wall is cold. We're losing a lot of heat through here. So part of the renovation, when we get to this, we're talking about how we'll be able to insulate this, put up some insulation on the inside of this wall. Same thing with that wall. Well, now you look at that wall and you go, what are we going to do with that wall, because we've got all those window panels in there? Well, by putting the lobby here, we can build a very energy efficient wall right here. Energy efficient windows. And now, yes, we're heating this area, but this now is a nice warm wall. So we look at this, we will be able to as I say, insulate these walls here, where we're losing a lot of heat.
Okay. So these windows stay?
No, we'll be replacing those windows. But we're very...
That's in kind of a debating stage right now, where what would like to happen, and I think, Gloria, you have to step up once in a while and talk a little bit about this. Gloria's got a concern about the public when they come in for voting. And one of the problems you've got right now is everything's fairly temporary, and we would like to make it a little more accessible for everyone. And one of the concerns we have presently, Gloria told me today that for every 200 people you need 1 voting station. Is that correct, Gloria?
For every 200 voters. Estimated.
Okay. So that means that in this space, we potentially, in the village, if you got everybody to vote, or Are you using your,
2,400 was the most that I've shown.
okay.
Less.
So we would need 12 voting machines in here, so we're trying
Either
to.
that, or we discourage people from voting, and then, you know.
I don't think that's the direction we were going.
Oh, okay.
Well, what I'd like to see is the booths along the wall
Yeah.
that fold out.
We'll have 2 walls, and one of the other things, though, if we need more, we could always use some of this space inside. But we'll see how that goes. I'm concerned about blocking off any of these windows at this time, because we'd have to fill them. So the thing, Larry, to respond to these windows, if you go from the outside, that wood is in pretty rough shape. And it'd be nice to be able to take them out. We wouldn't need to put in a thermal pane glass. You use a single pane glass, and it'd look nice when it's finished. Open it up so you don't have all the, was it your intention, as I look at the pictures here, this, you can't see it because this is the lobby, but these in here, would we still actually fill that space with glass in?
I think we have to, because of a discussion that might take place in the lobby while you're trying to have a meeting in here. There's always a little bit of sound out there, people overflow wise, so I think we'll try to keep a separation sound wise from the 2 spaces.
Shall we move on to the front?
Excuse me, is the back wall insulated too, just like this north wall is here?
We're
Excuse me,
intending, Joe, to
east wall?
insulate all the exterior walls.
Okay. And is there going to be improved insulation in the ceiling area?
We would very much like to try to do that. I think what I have to look at is when they put the trusses up here, the wood trusses, how much insulation is up there. And unfortunately, I have to go outside and do that, but we'll do that prior to construction.
When we look at the existing facility, the only exterior walls we're really looking at are these 2.
The other thing that will happen, of course, is all the lighting here will be taken down, and we'll relight this space, as will the council chambers or the Board of Trustees space.
Okay.
Could we reuse these?
These could be reused, I think, not in this location, but we certainly will reuse them.
Perhaps you'd like to use them in your establishment up the road? I didn't think so. Shall we talk about the outside? As some people would look at this and say, well, it hasn't changed very much from what was in the newspaper a long time ago. And I do have in the front of my binder here, you can see this is the original design. It hasn't changed a lot, but we'd like to point out some of the subtle differences. Call them improvements. On the initial drawing, of course, in the initial plan, we didn't have a lobby. And so what you saw in the drawing was all these windows. But what you see now, this represents the lobby. The tower is still here. We wanted to break this up. This was Elliot's idea. The initial design, or one of the earlier designs, this came right across. Now, Elliot wasn't trying to increase the square footage of the file room or the administrator's office, but rather to break this up so that we could have this.
We're trying to develop a residential, a lower scale look for the village hall, so it sits on this property. The property is fairly small, so as we put a building in here, we don't want to put a commercial looking building.
As we look at the south side, we see that it will retain or have pretty much, it's pretty straight across. I mean, as we look at this, there really isn't a lot to do with it. But Elliot, I did notice this peak. This is something that you added since we talked last. I like that. Be a little bit of an overhang here?
Correct. I think what we're trying to do is bring as much exterior light into the building as we can, so there would be certain spaces, circulation spaces. For example, the glass here, a lot of glass here, a fair amount of glass here, because we can minimize the amount of lighting that is needed during the day in the space, which is critical to your energy. And I think the other thing that we're trying to do is, as we build this, we're trying to develop a wall system that's got as high as R value as we possibly can. So it'll be full wall blanket insulation If we can, we'll do foam insulation, but we have to do a cost analysis of both of those. Again, it's a one-story building, but what they did when they built this building, it's a little bit higher than your typical, it's about 10 feet floor to floor. So that same configuration happens in the new addition. The materials are a veneer rock face block in 2 different modes, and then a cement siding. We showed the board a number of the buildings we've done in the community, and they've come to a consensus that these are somewhat colors that we're looking at. There was an early discussion about the shop yards and the historical piece of the shop yards and how could we bring some of that in. I think the brickwork we do on the tower and some of the colors should bring some of that in.
For those who haven't been around since this building was originally built, the one we're in now, originally had a flat roof. And it wasn't all that many years ago that the roof was added, that this roof was added. And that actually helps us as we design the roofs for the addition. So, you guys have any questions?
And I'd like to commend George, Gloria, Mark, and everyone. It's been very easy working with the village from the standpoint that they have some very good ideas that they'd like to get in the building. And unlike a lot of church groups that I deal with, they didn't tear each other apart. So I think we've come to a pretty good plan in this development. Yes?
Is there a back door or just the 2 side doors in the front?
There is the main door that we're trying to control all the traffic, and this door would be strictly for exiting, and that door would be strictly for exiting at this point.
Assuming that meets fire code.
It meets all of the, right. There's a lot of things that we're trying to retain in here so that we don't have to structurally do a lot vertically in here. Because this building was built to last for a long, long time. It's all concrete block with concrete decking. So it's a very substantial building. The toilet rooms, I think, are going to be a huge improvement for you, having used these here.
Well, they'll be interior and they'll have better heat. One of the characteristics that we built into this police area is that this is a secure area. Very important piece when you're designing an area like this. This door here and this door here make that secure. It's especially important when we're bringing people into that interview room. Mark, if you have any comments to add to that.
Yes.
Okay.
So the peak in the back on the other picture on the left, that looks like a sliding door or a door with a side light. That will not be there?
Yes,
Yeah.
that door there,
Oh, I didn't see the door on there.
the door's here,
Oh, that's on the side.
south side, yeah.
I was thinking the back.
Initially, one of the early things that they all talked about is we do not want a metal entry door where you don't know where you're coming into or leaving. So we made sure that all of this is a 24-hour vestibule, which was critical to the design, so that all hours of the day you could come here if you needed something and get either the police, the fire, or whoever.
We'll be putting an emergency phone in there so that somebody's out here, they know they can come in here, to repeat what Elliot just said, any time of the day or night, and pick up that phone, dial 911. It'll be illuminated, and there'll be a camera in it, if I remember correctly.
The other thing that's going to happen in the building is we've got some discussion with the Pepperfest people, and we're trying to provide all of those things on the exterior of the building that will facilitate the Pepperfest during that weekend in August.
In fact, if I want to add a little bit to that, Wally Gregerson on our committee is the liaison between us and the Pepperfest committee. And at the last meeting, we were asking him, okay, Wally, tell us where you want the power. Because we'll give you power over on this side of the building, and we'll give you power on this side of the building. Tell us where you want it, so that it'll be more convenient. You'll see a lot less extension cords running all around the building. I don't like to see all the extension cords. It's a fire hazard. It's also a safety hazard. So let's put them in places that make a lot of sense. So they'll come back to us on that. They'll also have some space down in the basement, or not, excuse me, the lower level. We allowed to call it a basement? No, it was a lower level? Okay. And I don't know if you know this, there is, in this storage area right now, there's quite a bit of Pepperfest. There's the refrigerator and the stove. I will tell you that the stove and oven is coming out of there, probably, maybe in pieces. We'll have to see how we can take it apart to get it out of there, because we can't do cooking in that lower level anymore. I think the refrigerator will probably stay there, and they're asking for just a couple file cabinets, and I think we can accommodate that too. Anybody else? Okay. Thank you, Ellen. Let's put this back on the rack over there. Okay. Now, getting back to the issue statement that I had brought up earlier, the Elliott Architect is currently reviewing all building codes. That's part of his job. The chief is investigating alarm and monitoring options. Mark has already contacted Cedar Corporation, and it was still light when this meeting started. And as you came up, or if you've been past the Village Hall recently, you'll notice all the different color flags out there. So we have been in touch with all of the service providers. And Cedar Corp came out at Mark's request and actually put some stakes out there. I happened to be driving by the day, and sure enough, they were out there with their surveying equipment, so we know where our property lines are. Now, having said those three items, those first three bullets, I want you to take a look at what the next steps in the process are. We need to apply for a variance because we're coming a little close to, what do we calculate, was it 7 feet? 9 feet total for out front. That's because, all right, 9 because we moved the vestibule out just a little bit. And we needed, what, 5 feet to the south? We're fine on the south, it was just towards the front. So we'll need a variance for that. The architect will then develop the construction drawings. These bullets are listed in the order in which things will happen. We will apply for a variance if we're given the approval to continue. Elliott will not develop the construction drawings until we're confident that we get the variance. Wouldn't make sense to go any further. The architect then will submit the construction drawings to the Wisconsin Department of Commerce for approval. We can't put a spade in the ground until the Wisconsin Department of Commerce approves the drawing. And they want more than what you see here. They want to see the construction drawings. We'll then apply for a building permit. We feel fairly confident that the building permit will be granted. Right, Gloria? I mean, it doesn't seem like it'd be a big issue. We will then seek qualified contractors. Elliott's told me that you've already gotten quite a few requests for this job. Is that right? But we're looking for qualified contractors, and our attorney will be working with Elliott to develop a list of qualifications. The contracts will then be reviewed by all parties and signed, and then we hope to have a groundbreaking ceremony in the not-too-distant future so that construction can begin. And the last bullet is probably the most important one, and that is that the Building Management Committee will not proceed without your, namely the Board of Trustees' approval of the floor plan and the building design. That's not to say that we're asking you to approve the color in the front, things like that. We can work that out. But it doesn't make sense for us to continue if you have some some changes that you would like to see, which the Building Management Committee would then take up, and then we'd come back to you and say, okay, how about this? So I will throw it out to you, Mr. Larson, and let you solicit input from our colleagues here.
Anybody have any questions or comments?
I'm impressed. Nice job, George. A very good job.
The whole committee. It's,
Everybody. Yeah.
Well, I'm not going to try
Gloria?
to second guess it. Obviously, you've spent a lot of time on a lot of details. Go ahead, Sandra, I'm sorry.
Before, a lot of the staff had concerns about various little things. Do you feel that all the staff concerns have been met and heard? You feel good about it?
To the best with the budget constraints and the starting point that we have to work with, yes.
Okay.
I'd just make one comment that I don't see on there, and it's a suggestion, I think I've made it before, but, you know, Larry spends a significant part of his day or week down here. And it would be, you know, there isn't an office necessarily for him, but I'm just wondering if he comes and has his, you know, does he have he or she, whoever's gonna be president of the board in the future, is it possible to have an area either set aside or an area in there that would be convenient or conducive to somebody working here for a while that could, you know, access a computer and the people here? Just a question.
Yep, understand the question. And that was a topic of discussion early on. And if I remember correctly, what we ended up, and Elliot, I'm going to have to ask you and Mark for some help on this one as well. We built in a very nice break room here.
Mm-hmm. What is the measurement of that room by any chance? About, what, 12 by 12 or so, or 12 by 14?
You remember off the top of your head? Otherwise, out comes the quarter scale.
It's about 11 by 12.
Okay.
I got 14 by, if this is to scale, Elliot, I don't know.
I took 2 feet out for the counter, if there is a counter in there, George. So
Okay.
that'd be 12 by about 11.
Yep. There's also, if it's not being used, Mark, if I'm right, could use the interview room?
Actually, that
What
board,
was-
that
go ahead,
room
Laura.
behind the cable is for the board.
This one here?
Yep.
It's more, I see.
Would we-
Okay, that'd be a good place.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Okay.
Yeah, we did actually.
That was so early on.
Yeah, okay.
Let's make sure, Building Management Committee, let's make sure that we make sure that there's capability of putting plugging in a computer back here.
And the only thing I'll say is that Nate from the cable company was here this afternoon and kind of looked at it and
Good.
said he's just we may have to do some tweaking in that area as far as cameras and.
All right.
So nothing
Okay.
major though.
Very good. Elliot, you've been working with the cable guy, right?
The other spot, Joe, that we picked for Larry to come in and do some of his work, this mail area, is
Okay.
meant to be that also. That if any of you come with your, to do whatever
Mm-hmm.
documents you need to, we're trying to set up some kind of a layout in here that may have that computer you
Yeah.
talk about, because it's right immediate to the administrator. And I was here one day when Larry came and he sat at this table and did most of his work, where now I think he'd be able to either work here or we can find a spot that would
Okay.
facilitate
No,
that.
that's, my personal perspective, that's more than adequate. The only thing that ever is missing is if we need to have a private conversation with who would be a staff of the village president, which would be either the administrator, chief of police, or the
I think what
supervisor of public works, and if they have private offices.
we're trying
that
to
makes a lot of
develop
that
this
problem go away
also
as
as that second meeting space.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, Mark is in and out so much that it's conceivable that that would be other option. The other thing we talked about early on is, and we have to look at the budget of this, but this could be closed off to act as another meeting space if you
That would be
needed it.
nice, I think, too.
Because the
Just for
table's
the-
there and it would be set up more on a permanent basis, so.
Elliot, the board room that we have behind cable, what size is that? Would that facilitate enough for a desk? And I believe that's what
I'll
we
have
said.
my designer take a look at it here.
8 by 8.
by 10,
8 by 8.
8 by
Basically
8.
cube size, cubicle size.
I mean, it's not gonna be for more than 2 or 3 people, but I think it'd be more than adequate with a small table in there.
Just one would be, one person and a guest.
And along those lines, I forgot, Joe brought up earlier, the lot across the street. I think we want to do this building, but we also want to have some planning for what that happens over there, and it may not be done right now, but I think in our minds that we would look at how would that be used and what kind of condition might that be in, because when they're here to do this, it might be an ideal time to consider what that could be, how that might tie into the whole site.
Just a couple little things. Elliot had invited us to come up and, for an opening, take a look at his new building. Very proud of it and has every reason to be. And so I was up there wandering around. Of course, not only was I up there for the goodies, but also, I had some really good hors d'oeuvres up there, I gotta tell you.
I'm sorry?
They were good, those hors d'oeuvres.
Oh,
Excellent.
let's talk about this building here.
Oh,
Let's not
okay.
talk about that stuff.
So while I was in there wandering around, I'm looking at the building and seeing what can I see in here that we could use? And what hit me was the sliding glass doors. So what we've got, I came back to the committee and I said, I really like the idea of sliding doors, especially where we're gonna have doors that are probably gonna be open 90% of the time. And so what we have is sliding door here, so we can close off this entire area. We've got a sliding door here for the break room. The anticipation is that those two areas, doors are gonna be open almost all the time. So why have a door, a swinging door?
Are you talking about pocket doors?
Yeah,
Or
yeah,
sliding?
pocket doors, yeah. I'm sorry, I'm thinking sliding glass because that's what Elliot had in his office. Thinking, okay, use that concept, so we're building the pocket doors in where they will work. And I think there's another place we put one in as well. So it's some of that little stuff. I looked at the cabinets in the break room. I said, boy, I really like these cabinets. Really look nice. So Dee Dee said to me, you know where we got them? No, where'd you get them? IKEA. What we're finding is that, wow, you get a real good deal. We get some, none that don't have to be the customized, very expensive cabinets as we put them in. So we're looking at all these places where, you know, save some money here, save some money there, but also make this a very practical building and make it very user as well as customer friendly.
You did a good job. Any other comments? Anyone else have any comments they'd like to make?
Elliot, you know how tall it is?
The building, the peak of the roof would be, you can set your scale against it.
Oh, okay.
An 1/8 or 1/4 inch there.
The peak here is, looks, that can't be 53, can't be 50. Oh, reading the wrong scale. All right.
Highest point on the building will be 24 feet, which is the top of the tower. Otherwise, everything else will be below that. The ridge line here, or where you bear your joist, is about 10 feet, so you can see that, you know, the roof structure is about 12 feet. The tower's a little bit higher. The scale-wise, it should fit well into the site.
Are you just leaving the existing roof on and then tying into it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That roof was actually replaced not that long ago.
This one.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
I think one of our concerns is what Joe brought up before, is how well is this insulated, so we'll take a look up there and see when they, because basically the exterior of this building has
Nothing,
no insulation.
yeah.
So we're presently gonna bring it on the inside on these 2 walls.
That kind of stuff doesn't help with the mold either, cold walls.
Hey, George, you had said that glass window, excuse me, I'm getting close to losing my voice here, but between the administrative office, the treasurer's room, and the clerk's room would be a large window. Had you thought
Go ahead, Gloria.
of a sliding glass door so that you would have,
We did, after we met with Elliot, there was a discussion that that should become a sliding glass door for when Jennifer and Donna are out, that I can go up and service the counters.
I'd strongly recommend
Because
that.
otherwise I'm running around and sometimes, people would, it'd be easier to get to the residents.
It seems like it would complete the traffic flow perfectly.
Yes. It was a good idea. Mark Ekblad had brought it up.
Mhm.
That it really probably should be a sliding glass door so that I can get out of my office to the treasurer, to the clerk. Where that window is?
This one,
That one, yeah.
Yes.
to have this a sliding glass door?
Yeah.
Minor modification there, Elliot.
You just expounded on the sliding glass doors, so that's what's there.
Bada bing. Sorry to spend all your hard-saved money.
No, we did talk about the cost differential between a good pocket door, sliding doors, and the wooden, we gotta use solid core doors, and there really is negligible, isn't it?
I think the key with the doors on the interior being, it's all glass to allow the transmission of light through
Right.
space to the inside. And it would also work here as a function because Gloria then can move back and forth when one of the people aren't. Let's say Donna isn't there in the corner and somebody comes up, Gloria would be able to go up and take care of it.
Perfect.
Well, we've taken quite a bit of time here tonight, but I think this was, I think we needed to let you know where we were with this.
What do you think potential timing is for start of construction?
We are right, actually, Elliot, we're right on schedule, aren't we?
And
We're on the schedule that Elliot and Todd had put together a couple months ago. So that's why I listed the bullets here, the open bullets under the next steps in the process. Right down towards the bottom where it says present information.
Yeah, for those of us that can't remember anything, when is the timing for groundbreaking?
Right on schedule.
Could I have a date? I'm not asking for a
Okay,
date.
I'd have to go.
Wondering what the date
I'd
is.
have to go back to the big book here.
While you're looking in there, George, I was at the Cable Advisory Board this morning meeting. I was a representative of North Hudson, and Nate said as soon as you were at this point that he would love to sit in and meet with you as to where the electronics and cameras and such should go, that he's prepared to take care of all the layout and design for that. So he's waiting to hear from somebody, so that will be nice.
We had 9 plans, Jim, we're trying to get it down to 1.
What was it, 3 weeks ago I was here?
I think
My
we're getting
God.
there.
You have done a lot since I participated in that meeting a few Thursdays ago. I'm amazed. Very good job. Really came along well.
This schedule that Elliot put together does not have groundbreaking on it, so I'm sorry, Joe, I can't give you that date.
What does it talk about construction there, George? Does it say a construction bid? I think our big concern as the community, we want to have this up to a point that during Pepperfest, there won't be a problem with this addition. Because what we're going to have to do is build that building, then come in and work on this building, move everybody over there. So that, we can't function in here while we're trying to make the changes in here. So Pepperfest was a deadline that we're trying to have the foundations and everything up to a point so that all the grades would be reasonable, and so that that activity could happen during that weekend. I would guesstimate the building would be completed by, way before deer season. But deer season is a deadline we want to back way up from, so.
under construction administration, the earliest date there is the 14th of June.
I think the board asked us to get that up so that we can start
Yeah.
construction. We're anticipating probably middle of May for the start of construction.
That's close enough. That's all I need.
Okay.
Don't spend any more time digging.
This was a document that Elliott Architect put together on the 25th of January. And it's got general dates in it. So that's where we are.
Okay. Did you intend to make a motion to?
I'd like somebody else to make the motion.
Okay. Having read the notes, I know what you've got, which was, the motion would be to approve.
Except, is
Go
this
ahead.
it right here? I'll
Yeah,
make
go
the
ahead.
motion, and then you guys can modify it if you want. Accept the proposed floor plan and building design as presented, and to authorize the BMC and Elliott Architects to continue with the process. I'll make that motion, by the way.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'd second that.
Okay. Any further questions or discussion? If not, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Okay.
Thank you. Next two should be a lot quicker. I could drag them out. No. Chief? Come on in. We've got, I want to make sure I do them in the right order. On ordinance, simply amending section 90-01, which I believe, if we can use the correct term, was an oversight, that it was left out of our ordinances. Is that correct?
Yeah, I wasn't here during the time, or I should say I wasn't chief during the time that the ordinances were revised. I believe it was in 2001, but for whatever reason, state statute 346.18, which is the right to yield right-of-way, wasn't included in all of the state statutes that the board adopted, that the municipal court could then see or hear cases against. And so in changing this ordinance to add 346.18, it just allows the officers to write right-of-way citations into municipal court instead of the higher bond amounts and the greater impact on licenses in the circuit court arena.
Okay. Do you have a motion?
Oh, I think we have one here. Move to amend ordinance 90-1 to include 346.18, general rules of right-of-way.
Can I comment on that?
Please do. Actually, could I go get a second first?
Well, okay.
Okay, now.
The motion should adopt ordinance 2007 to amend section, and then go on.
Okay.
Because it's actually the ordinance that
Oh,
we're
okay.
adopting.
We're adopting the ordinance that adds, okay. Kathy, do you have that?
It was
Read-
from
Ca-
here, 02-2007.
Move to adopt ordinance.
Yeah.
Amending section 90.1 to include, and then just use the rest of the chief's motion,
Okay.
just add that in the beginning.
And that's what you meant too when you seconded it, right?
And that's what it's.
Yeah, so it
That's what.
is. Thank you.
Okay. All right, any questions related to that ordinance change? An ordinance change, I think, requires a roll call vote, so start over here. In favor, Jim?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Sandra? Mark? And George? Yes. Okay.
The next one has to do with, we discussed this at the trustee meeting, or at the finance committee meeting, and this issue will simply give the chief the opportunity to fill a vacancy if it can be negotiated with the union. so that he could hire an officer who's got some experience and move them onto a lateral move on the pay scale from, and also allow him to accept applicants year-round, even when there isn't an advertised opening. You have the issue statement in front of you. It's got a lot of detail in it. And I'll make the motion, and we can have some discussion on it. Kathy, would you read the motion that we had made during the Finance Committee meeting?
The motion was that the Board of Trustees authorize the Chair of the Public Safety Committee and the Chief of Police to commence negotiations with the Professional Police Association for the purposes of modifying the agreement to allow lateral transfers to fill vacancies.
I think the only thing that I would add is it is the Wisconsin Professional Police Association.
What, yeah.
It is, as you stated in the paragraph near the bottom, correct?
Okay.
Is there a second? Is it accurate to state the current contract really doesn't allow you to take an applicant who is currently an experienced officer and move them into the structure other than at the lowest rate?
There's no verbiage in the contract that talks about management's rights to set the pay scale. It has a pay scale that's set, and it's based on years of experience with the North Hudson Police Department. And so I guess that verbiage in and of itself relates to specifically if they had 10 years of experience with the Baldwin Police Department and they came on board, they're going to start at our minimum and have to work their way up. And I think we're really letting ourselves down and trying to get some of those experienced officers, which obviously reduces our amount of training and gives us a lot better, or a lot more skilled police force than what we get when we bring on brand new people, which we have no problem doing because there's a benefit to that as well. But when we lose someone like we have with the 5 years of experience, we've done a lot of training, and we fill that position with someone who has absolutely no training coming on board with your minimum requirements to get a job in law enforcement. There's some time to build that experience and do that training. So
that's fine.
We don't have anything currently.
The question that was raised, and I didn't want to even take a guess at it, when does the contract currently expire?
It expires December 31st of this year.
So by passing this now, this motion, I'm going to assume it passes, will we have to commence negotiations with the union rep?
It all depends on if we have any vacancies prior to that point. So I mean, we could just include it in the next contract.
Okay.
I've learned very quickly in the year and a half or so that I've been chief that I should expect that there's going to be vacancies. So it depends on when the board wants to actually make that change.
Okay.
Okay, any other comments or questions on this topic? All right, we have a motion and a second, so all in favor of the motion to authorize Chair of Public Safety and the Chief of Police to commence negotiations, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
Thank you, Mark.
Thanks.
Public welfare.
Just 2 items. We've set the dates for the bulky item drop-off, and that will be at the same location behind the car wash, I believe. April 21st, which is a Saturday. And then also we're doing the same yard waste pickup that we did last fall. That's yard waste only, grass clippings, leaves, pine needles, organic items.
And on April 21 too?
Nope, the dates for that, that'll be curbside pickup again.
Okay.
May 7th and 8th are the dates. Also, they talked about needing a little more time, so if things aren't picked up on 7th or 8th, it might go into the 9th or 10th.
Okay.
But it's that week, the week of May 7th. And that's all I have.
Okay. Park Board? Did Colleen ask me to pass on anything? Okay. All right, new business, nothing under president's comments? Did you have anything you want to add?
We have an election next Tuesday. I hope all the residents will come out and vote. We still have about 400 to 500 estimated that are not registered, and I hope they come in before the election day. So save themselves a wait.
Okay.
And that's it.
Okay, that's all the items on the agenda. Will everybody entertain? Is there a second? Sandra? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried, meeting is adjourned.
I'm gonna leave these up